Welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week, we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, Kitchen Victories and Misadventures, and what we're cooking and eating right now. We're glad you've joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larson, home cook, Joy of Cooking user and fan, and summer picnic enthusiast.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and garlic cloves need to be larger, so if someone could get on that, I'd be much obliged.
I'm John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook. And when left to my own devices and, relative privacy, I will slather my morning toast with fried chili paste instead of jam.
I like it.
What have you been up to this week, Shannon? I saw that you did go on a picnic.
Yeah, and I haven't been on as many picnics as I normally go on every summer, and I'm going to change that for the rest of September. That's what I've decided. So I've already got a plan in place to have like a different one at the Bluffs and all of these things. It's also a chance to eat my favorite kind of dinner, which is just snack dinner.
Yes, snack dinner.
All of the little yummy things. We also had a ton of tomatillos in the garden, so we made green chicken enchiladas for dinner.
Yum.
And had enough to freeze. So I'll be looking forward to that in the winter. And then last night we had some friends over for a vegan feast, and I did all Hetty McKinnon recipes and they're mostly vegetarian anyway, so it's easy to veganize them.
Yeah.
And that was just fun to pick one recipe writer and just go with like all of that person's dishes. I kind of want to do that more often. I thought it was just like a fun thing to, put together.
It's funny you mentioned that. We went to like a Hetty McKinnon festival.
Oh, really?
Basically. Yeah. It was at our friend Celeste's backyard. Everybody brought Hetty McKinnon recipes.
They're so good.
Yeah, they're really good. I feel like they're also, I know they're not necessarily, but they feel summery. It's like the food I want to eat in the summer.
Yeah. A lot of tomatoes, a lot of like fresh herbs. And I find her recipes easy to follow and fun to follow. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like her
agree.
style.
Hetty McKinnon fan club.
Yeah, seriously. We'll make buttons.
Let's see. This week has been kind of an off week for me cooking-wise. Just not a ton going on, but I did make my annual elderberry tincture this week, which was really fun. I love doing that, and I love this year. We were on the way back from the coast, and our friend was driving, and I was like, if you see an elderberry that still has the berry, because it's a little late for them now, but I was like, if you see one on the side of the road, and it's safe to pull over, please stop the car.
John is shaking his head right now.
Yeah, the narrator voice, it was not safe.
It was perfectly safe. It was fine. She did stop on the side of the road, and we got plenty of elderberries, so that worked out really well, and now I have that for the winter. And I've also been developing a Moravian chicken pie recipe.
Is that the one without gravy or something?
It's the one without vegetables.
That's right.
No vegetables. So just a crust, double crust, and a chicken in a chicken gravy. The only seasoning is salt and pepper. Very
Interesting.
simple, very homey.
Yeah, no gravy would be too Spartan even for a...
I guess
Gotta
that's
have gravy.
Yeah, no.
Don't be silly. But yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to. Did you have anything to add, John?
I made a tomato sandwich, but a classic tomato sandwich the other day, like a whole tomato on the sandwich. But for some reason, it was uncanny valley territory because it was a yellow tomato. I don't understand like why it didn't work, but yeah,
Wait, it didn't work?
it did. Okay, fine.
I think it's just a mental thing. Those tomatoes taste really good. We got some yellow. They're very pale
Are they
yellow.
from Flying Coyote?
Yeah, they're from our CSA. They're really good. The flavor's great.
They're so good. That's what I used in our tomato dumpling salad last night.
Awesome. Yeah, we still have a couple that we need to use, so we'll probably do that. But I think it's just a brain thing. Like my brain wants a red tomato on the tomato sandwich. It feels wrong somehow.
It had a little bit of like pink in the middle, though. I think that counts.
Oh, well, mine did not, but...
And then we also made our Joy Scouts recipe of the week, which is the French yogurt cake on page 734. It's such a good and easy recipe. I probably whipped it up in maybe, I'm going to say 10 minutes. It's super fast. And it's really, it's kind of like a French pound cake. It's not quite as dense as pound cake. It doesn't have that same sort of like velvety texture, but it's close. And it's got this crunchy sugar topping on it that's really delicious. So I highly recommend everyone make that. It's a very solid Joy recipe.
I will add, I am not a baker. not a baker. I made this and I took it into work for a client breakfast.
Ooh.
We had clients actually come in for a meeting, which is rare right now because everybody has meetings on like Teams or Zoom. It was a hit. I paired it with some quince jam that I had in my pantry, and everyone was like, "What is this cake?" And it took me almost no time the night before. So add that to your like if you want to
Endorsement.
impress people.
Yeah.
Thing.
Exactly. Effortless. Easy and
Yeah.
effortless. We would like to welcome our guest, Shane Mitchell, to the table. Shane Mitchell writes narrative nonfiction and cultural criticism. She is the editor-at-large for Saveur, which publishes Equal Portions, her column on food activism and mutual aid. She has received 5 James Beard Awards. Earlier this year, her essay collection, The Crop Cycle, was longlisted for the PEN America Art of the Essay Prize. Shane, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much.
What have you been cooking this week that you're excited about?
Well, speaking of tomatoes, it's end of tomato season here in northern New York, and I have 2 bushels of San Marsanos on order from a farmer neighbor that I'm going to can for winter. I can tomatoes every winter to make pizza and spaghetti sauce and add to stocks and stews. And it's also apples are about to hit the stands here, but we have a lot of half wild trees along the road. Pretty much anywhere someone threw an apple 100 or 50 years ago. And a lot of the time I like to gather them up to make chutney. There's some very old, very weird varieties. So that's kind of what we're about to eat. There's just something about this time of year. There's a sort of transition going on. The nights are cold, but still can hear crickets outside my kitchen window where I'm sitting right now. And so that's kind of what we're eating at the moment.
Do you ever use those funky old apples to make cider?
Oh, no, but every now and then it starts to snow early here. We often have trick-or-treaters show up in snowsuits. So, after one of those freaky snowstorms, there's still apples on the ground. And one of my puppies once dug a frozen one out of the snow. And I remember the ecstasy on her face as the frozen juice gushed from her jaws. It was probably fermented, so she probably got a little tanked.
I'm sure that was extra adorable.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, I was curious what's growing this time of year in northern New York. I've honestly never been there, so I don't really have a frame of reference.
Our zone is 3.5. And you never plant anything before June, and you better pull everything in by mid-September because frost starts. So it's the tail end of things right now. There's, outside right now, the last of my herbs are still edible. I have one shishito, one. And I also have one rogue shiso. That my sister gave me, and she said, don't let the seeds get anywhere. And of course, the seeds got everywhere. So I'm just holding off to harvest that because I need some shiso ideas. And so that's kind of what's left.
Love shiso. I'm not exactly sure how many ideas to offer, except for I like to use it in place of basil in a few select things. But yeah, love it. But yeah, it does self-seed quite effectively, and at least it has for us.
Yeah, our plants are just now starting to look really nice. So I think we still have about a month, though, before they'll go away.
Your shiso plants?
Yeah.
I've had them tempura battered and fried in Japan, but just, there's just one plant right now. And so that's about 10 leaves. There's not much to it, unfortunately.
You have to make sure whatever you make with it is like super special.
Are there any foods or any dishes that are particular to your part of the country that you think don't get enough recognition?
Oh, wow. Okay. So the interesting thing about this area is that it's a very old area as far as trade is concerned. So I live on a feeder canal for the Erie Canal, which obviously was used to transport goods, back and forth from like New York City all the way to the Great Lakes. The earlier populations who settled here after the revolution were Palatine Germans. There were a lot of Irish laborers. There were a lot of Italian laborers who came. The population also had a lot of Polish workers. So there was a lot of heavy, meaty, pasta-y foods to begin. One of the famous ones from Utica, which is the nearest city to me, is something called chicken riggies, which is essentially rigatoni with chicken in it. And when I first moved up here about 30 plus years ago from New York City, you couldn't get cilantro. There was no sushi. There's still no sushi. But I had to bring things up, like I had to actually carry cilantro up, or I would have to grow it. There was no decent bread unless it was squishy and white. So what was interesting to me was observing a transition of the food in this area from pretty bland, pretty comforting, no spice, no heat, to all of a sudden this diaspora that opened up because Utica became essentially a sanctuary city and became a refugee city center. So we had waves of new residents arrive, including populations from Laos, Vietnam, Bhutan, Sudan, Somalia, Bosnia, the Dominican Republic, and it goes on. There's about 40 languages spoken in the local school system now.
Wow.
And you can get all these diverse foods now. And there's tiny little grocery stores that specialize. There's one called WinFat, where everybody goes on Wednesdays because they go down to Hunts Point Market once a week to get fresh fish. And you can stand in the middle of that little grocery store on Bleecker Street in Utica and see the world. So for me, that's kind of an exciting change to have the world come here. It's very, very cool.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm. That kind of sounds like where I grew up.
Really?
Too. As I was describing the Moravian chicken pie earlier, a lot of the foods of that particular area, not super, I grew up with them, so I love them, but not the most flavorful foods. But in the intervening years, now, you can easily find, like in Greensboro, a Vietnamese market and a Chinese market and a lot of Mexican grocery stores. And that's been a really interesting transformation to watch. So in preparation for this episode, we read several essays in your book, Crop Cycle. And I got to ask you, you say that you hate grits. Let's talk about that.
Oh man, I hate grits. Boy. There's always one of those foods from childhood that you're just resistant to. And no matter what any chef does to it or what any miller creates from some heirloom grain, it's just never going to get on the plate. There's just such a huge wall of resistance. Part of it is texture, part of just memory of my mom making me sit at the table until I ate it, and I just would refuse. I'd sit there until noon.
They don't improve on the plate over time.
They do not improve on the plate. So yeah, it's sort of a metaphor for certain things that I find objectionable in the food space. So I wear that flag.
Like those are fighting words around Megan, it feels like.
I actually grew up pretty much only eating instant grits, which is something you write about, that instant grits are so ubiquitous because they do take a long time to cook. I didn't hate them, but I really didn't care for them at all. It was just something I would not normally choose to eat until as an adult I had grits that were made from, actually good cornmeal or good corn and flavorful varieties of corn and cooked really long and slow. Those are delicious, but you almost never get to have those.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about, you write in your book about how like instant grits were created?
Essentially, it was one of those post-war convenience foods that showed up, and it was created basically in a lab. This had nothing to do with an actual food product. Okay, yeah. So 1967, and it was produced for the Quaker Oats Company. I guess the point is that there is such a long journey from the history of actual corn product being cooked. When corn was first milled in Central America around about eight to 9,000 years ago. So you have this long history of people eating delicious corn and cornmeal product up to 1967, when you get this instant stuff. And it has no bearing whatsoever. It has none of the flavor, none of the character. As you say, Megan, to cook proper grits, you have to cook it a really long time. Instant grits was a convenience food. It was made and designed to be ripped open, dumped in a pot, stirred 3 times, and then stuck on a plate, preferably with something on top, like some gravy or some kind of fried meat or some kind of scrambled eggs or whatever person who was preparing breakfast for people who were running out the door to whip into their mouth and go. So you get a real sort of cultural break and dissonance from that time period to now, when there's been a renaissance of small batch milling and heirloom corns. So we're getting back to that sort of original idea of a cornmeal product that you would actually want to stick in your mouth.
Has polenta avoided that childhood association with instant grits, or do you kind of no pun intended, lump it together with the grits?
Yeah, I love, there's an apocryphal story about polenta that has no documentation whatsoever, but it is one of my favorite stories, which has to do with the transatlantic Columbian exchange. When you look at what the Spanish were doing in Central and South America at the time with their gold ships, what they were doing was they were traversing the continent, snatching up all the gold that they could, sticking them in these ships and transporting them to Venice, which was at the time the banking capital of the old world. However, every now and then, the Spanish galleons would be raided by mostly British buccaneers and privateers who wanted the gold. And again, this is all apocryphal. It's just a kind of a folktale. So what the Spanish would do is hide the gold in the bulk carrier part of the ships, what they call the hold, and they'd cover it with corn cobs. And whenever a pirate would stop them on the high seas, the pirates would board and the Spanish would let them look in the hold, and they'd say, "Oh, we just got a load of corn we're taking to Europe." And the privateers supposedly would go, "Oh, well, we don't want that stuff," and leave. And the Spanish would continue on, drop their gold in Venice. And the Italians, being frugal people, said, "Well, what's this other stuff? What's this stuff covering the gold?" And the Spanish said, "Well, we don't care about that. You can have it." And the Italians, eventually the Venetians, that's how corn got to the old world. And that's how polenta came into being.
Well, as apocryphal food stories go, it sounds just as plausible as the other ones. I mean, origin stories tend to be kind of tall.
Yeah, origin stories with a lot of food are difficult because we just don't have the records, and it's something that a lot of people didn't think was important enough to write down, I guess.
And yet I love listening to these stories so much.
And, we kind of went down the rabbit hole with different varieties or different types of corn when we were working on the 2019 Joy of Cooking, because it gets a little hairy because you're talking about, flint corn versus dent corn. And what does that mean? What kinds of things how are they different? What are they used for?
What does that mean?
Well, so dent corn is most commonly used for like cornmeal for grits, and then flint corn is more commonly used for polenta. However, I think in our research we found that wasn't always necessarily consistent.
Yeah, it was a little messier than that.
Yeah, it's messier. I mean, that's a nice way to think about it, but flint corn is really, really hard. It's much harder than dent corn. I think you actually did you write down the quote from the essay about that, John?
Oh, well, yeah, I kind of had an aha moment because it just reminded me of the conversations or researching we did with grits versus polenta. But you talked to Greg Johnsman at Marsh Hill Mills, is that it?
Marsh
Hen Mills, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just talking about like the practicality of milling, like in the South. What he said, this is the worst place in the world to mill with the humidity and everything. And I had heard in the past that in our researching, one of the big differences between grits and polenta is that, polenta is milled multiple times, and that so you get kind of a more consistent particle size. And so then it kind of just clicked. It was like, oh yeah, well, that's why that's probably the big cause of the difference between polenta and grits. And of course, the flint versus dent corn.
Well, there's also, flint corn has a harder shell, so it takes more milling. But it's also that flint corn varieties typically were grown more in the northern climates. The dent corns were grown down south. And so that's why you see a difference in milling techniques from southern mills versus northern mills, but also just what you would use them for.
And I have to put in a little plug for my favorite source of cornmeal, which is Farm and Sparrow. They're located in Mars Hill, North Carolina, and they sell a couple of really, really awesome varieties of. You can get it ground as cornmeal, as grits, or as polenta. So they're actually claiming that they will grind it to order. And it is very fresh and delicious, and it makes great cornbread. But I also wanted to bring up, there's an essay in Crop Cycle called Wet Hot Goobers, and I love that title so much. Can you talk a little bit about what a goober is?
Yeah, actually it's hot, wet goobers.
Hot, wet goobers, sorry.
That's okay. Hot, wet goobers. So hot, wet goobers are essentially boiled peanuts. And boiled peanuts are something I grew up eating because it's kind of like the South's potato chip. You see them at baseball games, you see them at church suppers, you'll find them on boilers on the roadside. There's favorite grocery stores that have them. And it's also, again, this sort of fascinating cross-cultural thing because so many diverse populations in the South now have brought their version of boiled peanuts to the South. I think specifically of like the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Koreans. But everybody has their version of boiled peanuts. If the only way you've ever had peanuts is in butter, you're not going to really understand that peanuts are a legume. And they lend themselves to being boiled, to being cooked, not just roasted and ground. So there's a joy in having driven on a long journey often I drive between Charleston and Savannah, and I know the boiled peanut stands all the way down Highway 17. So I will pull over, buy hot boiled peanuts, hot wet peanuts, and they're really salty. They're really intense. You have to use your one hand while you're driving and use your other hand to pop the actual peanut out of the shell. Some people will just use their teeth and pull from the shell. But the best way to eat hot boiled peanuts is to stick them in a bottle of cold fizzy Coke.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you get both the salty, chewy and the sweet and fizzy together. The only problem is it can go up your nose. So you have to watch out.
I'm going to Savannah for the first time this year, and so I'm taking notes on
Keep an
boiled
eye out.
peanut tips and tricks. Yeah.
Look at convenience stores.
Okay.
Yeah, gas stations a lot of the time. At least in my experience, gas stations will have like a
crock
pot. A crock pot of hot wet goobers.
And get a Coke.
My mom talks about she did when she was little, she would do the peanuts and Coke thing, but I don't know if they just didn't have the boiled peanuts as readily available, but she would get like a little packet of just salted, roasted peanuts and then dump them all. Like you take a swig out of the Coke bottle, you dump them all in and kind of let them get, mixed around in there. And then you have the salty, sweet Coke. And then at the bottom of the bottle, you've got these nice softened peanuts.
I have never heard of this before, and I am so fascinated.
Where was your mom from, though?
Just outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay. It's a North Carolina thing. I've heard this before. But yeah, the other thing you want to be careful about is don't buy a Ziploc bag of peanuts that are sitting in the refrigerated case. Make sure they're hot, which some grocery stores and some gas stations do have them in a crock pot. But your best bet is just to start asking people along the way who makes the best boiled peanuts. And the real aficionados look for the small Valencias rather than the jumbos, because the jumbos can be kind of floury, too chewy. The Valencias tend to, salt clings to them better. So that's what I'd recommend as far as boiled peanuts. But I will say the Coke has to be in a bottle, and it has to be, the real deal rocket fuel. No messing about with diet or cherry or anything like that. Or Coke Zero. So, but also I will say that older generations used to do this with other sodas besides Coke. I mean, my dad loved grape knee-high. So that was his favorite combinations, boiled peanuts and grape knee-high, which is hard to get these days, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you should experiment.
Yeah, maybe get some cheer wine.
Oh, cheer wine.
Yeah, cheer wine's real good. Absolutely.
I'm going to Savannah with my mom, who does not eat peanuts or drink soda. So she's going to be like, what are we doing here? I'm excited.
More for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things I kept thinking about as I was reading your book is that, people think about the South as this monolithic place, but really there are many Souths, many little micro cultures within the larger South. What characterizes your South? What is the South? I know you didn't grow up in the South, but your family is from the South.
Yeah, my family's deeply from the South. It's a very complicated history, my family's history, and I address that in the crop cycle. But my family is coastal South Carolina for the most part, although my mom's family is Tennessee as well as South Carolina. So both mom and dad have roots in South Carolina, and the part of that I gravitate most to and appreciate the most is the Sea Islands. My family was centered on an island called Edisto, which is about an hour south of Charleston. So there's a lot of intersection with the foods that I grew up eating that relate to a lot of my colleagues now who are from the Gullah Geechee culture. And we all have this interesting dialogue about those foods. Recently, Laverne and Marvette Meggett were up here at my house because they were going to the National Women's Museum for an event, which is over in Seneca Falls. So they hauled up, I'd say about 5 pounds of okra from one of the farms on Edisto to make okra soup here in my kitchen. So for me, that's the South that I'm from. But the South that I like to celebrate when I write about it, whether it's for the Better Southerner or for Savor, or speak about it, in events, has to do with the greater South, the South that's the now South. I do not have any nostalgia about the Old South at all.
Yeah, I feel like that is something that comes through really, really beautifully in your writing. You don't shy away from that complexity, and there's not a lot of, I feel like there are a lot of really kind of saccharine stereotypes about the South, and it is a very special place, and it's dear to me because I grew up there, but it does feel like whitewashing. But I'm really glad that more and more writers are tackling the history and also the legacy of the history that still is with us.
Yeah, it's really important. I'm very lucky to say that one of my roles is being able to help certain new voices get attention without being a gatekeeper of any kind. I just am looking to expand that dialogue in important ways. So it's been a great joy to be able to say that I've had a chance to do that.
What new writers and new voices, can you share any of those with our listeners in case folks want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. Well, for instance, there's a young gal in Charleston. She's from North Charleston. Her name's Amethyst Ganaway. She's just gotten her first book deal. And
oh, nice.
Oh, that's great
I think
news.
it's really, really fantastic that she's come and is working really hard to do an incredibly interesting book that's essentially looking at nose to tail eating in the South. There's, oh my gosh, there's so many. Eric Kim is a great friend who's at the New York Times. I think what he writes about his roots in Atlanta is extraordinary and compelling and delicious. I mean, it's so exciting. There are so many chefs who have Hispanic influence, and there's a couple of chefs. There's Obed Vallejo, who is at Mais de la Vida in Nashville. And I worked with him on a project last year that was encompassing different interpretations of fish on Friday in different cultures and in different religions. I was very excited to hear what he was telling me about growing up in Florida in cattle country. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that Florida was a cattle town, cattle ranching area. Turns out it is. There's so much exciting, stories to be able to tell. I was just on the phone the other day with Bintu Nadal of Atelier Bintu, and Bintu's originally from Senegal, but she, in a convoluted way, wound up in Charleston. And we were talking about the connectivity of the foodways in Senegal and in the Low Country of South Carolina. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the voices that you should be listening to right now.
I love that. Thank you. I love a bibliography.
Yeah, speaking of Fish on Fridays, one thing that you put in our questionnaire that I just have to ask you about is you said that you have an aversion to cod, and I don't know. As long as there's no parasite talk. It
was really bad cod in Portugal. Let's just say it came out every hole in my body.
Oh, no.
4 days on the floor. I can't even see it on somebody else's plate. And there's so much great stuff. You can't have really good fish and chips without cod. I go to Iceland a lot because I have a lot of friends there, and they joke with me about it. And I'm just like, no, I'd rather eat shark. It's just, the harkarl, which is the fermented shark up there, then get near cod.
Strong words.
Yeah,
those are very strong words. I had the privilege of trying some of that once, and that's very, very strong.
It's intense, but that's the Icelandic for you. They like intense things. But unfortunately, cod will never be on the menu in my house ever again.
I mean, food poisoning will change a person.
Yeah,
it does. It does indeed.
One thing we ask all of our guests, Shane, is what is your relationship with the joy of cooking?
Okay. So my relationship with the joy of cooking is I have 2 copies. The first is the 1943 edition, which belonged to my husband's grandmother. Her name was Margaret Quackenbush, but they called her Mimi. And the backboard has separated. I guess the glue is gone. So I hold the covers together, usually with a rubber band. And this 43 treasure has a lot of favorite recipes tucked inside for things like curried eggs and ham loaf and lime cheese ring, and something called golden buckle, which was scribbled on the back of a canasta score sheet. And one of the favorite ones that I love is this is ephemera. It's not actual recipes. Although you apparently have several different ham loaf recipes in the 43.
That sounds right.
It's a handwritten one that I found called Dressing for Turkey. And it must be from her Mimi's mother, because it says "Good luck, mother" on the back. That's the one. And the second is the 1975 edition, which I inscribed to my baby chef brother, Jamie, in 1975. And I think I gave it to him for Christmas. This is before he became a chef. He was starting to think about what he wanted to do with his career. He would still have been in high school then. But I guess I stole it back from him because I have it now.
He became a chef, you know. I guess he didn't need it anymore.
Well, we have this crazy sort of cookbook exchange between the two of us because I get stacks and stacks and stacks of cookbooks, and we can sort of see. That's just what's in the kitchen. I mean, there's 2 other rooms dedicated to books. Whether it's my research books or the Southern books or just the stack of current books. Like I'm about to start reading Ruby Tando's All Consuming.
Ooh, I'm very excited to read that.
Yeah, me too. Especially the U.S. edition bubble tea cover. So we trade cookbooks back and forth. Mostly I'm just giving them to him. But whenever I'm at his house in Newport, I scan them and go, wait a minute, the Ben Shuri Attica book is now $300 at Kitchen Arts and Lever. I'm stealing that one back.
Smart.
So those are my 2 Joy of Cookings.
Did we not send you a 2019?
No, I don't have a copy.
Well, I have to rectify
We'll fit
that.
it on your list.
Yeah, I feel like we sent one to your nephew. I think that was...
You did.
Right.
You did. Thank you so much. Yeah, he still gets a bulk of those cookbooks that I stack up. He's 17 and he's quite a cook now.
Awesome.
Tell him we said hello.
I will. He's also named Shane.
Oh, nice.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about an easy way to enhance your meals. Whether they are a healthy vegan grain bowl or that late night snack we'll pretend didn't happen the next day, and that easy way is Marshall's Hot Sauce. For 15 years, chef and cookbook author Sarah Marshall has been hand-making and bottling these delicious sauces. She works directly with local farmers and highlights the lovely flavors of fresh seasonal produce. They're gluten-free, there are no additives, dyes, waxes, or binders, and they have mouth-watering combinations like serrano ginger lemongrass, or habanero carrot curry, or even whiskey smoked ghost, which was featured on Hot Ones. So head on over to marshallshotsauce.com, that's Marshall's HAUTESAUCE.com, and see all the available sauces and spice blends. Oh, that's right. Sarah's created spice packets by dehydrating and freeze-drying actual produce, so you can impart flavor to your food with more vegetables. But that's a story for another day. Find all of these delicious creations at marshallshotsauce.com and enter HOTJOY, that's one word, capital H, AUTE, capital JOY, one word, at checkout for 20% off. That's HOTJOY at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show.
So each week we answer a caller question, and this week we're going to talk about ride or die joy recipes. Sarah, can you play the question, please?
Hi, my name is Carly. I am from Kansas, and I'm leaving a comment for the Joy of Cooking. I just wanted to say thank you for this podcast. It's brought a lot of reinvigoration to my love for cooking as I've become a mom in the past 4 years. I've had 3 kids, in the past 4 years. So cooking has been good but hard in lots of different ways. But my question is, if you had to pick a recipe from the book to be your ride or die, what would it be? So, like, this is the recipe you're definitely making to take to the potluck, or this is the recipe you want to share, I don't know, with your mom or your friends or your other foodie lovers, or this is the thing you're definitely making for the family next door that just had a baby and you want to bring them a meal, or just something from the book. I think for me, currently, my ride or die recipe out of the book is the banana bread cockaigne. I hope I'm saying that right. I love the banana bread recipe. It is so good, and I've shared it with probably about 10 people because I'm like, you got to make this banana bread. It is so delicious and easy and simple, and my kids love it, and my husband loves it, and I love it. So I was wondering if there are other recipes that you guys would recommend to be a ride or die, or, you know, just something different. But I just wanted to thank you, and that I really enjoyed the podcast.
All right, our ride or die joy recipes. Shannon, I kind of want to hear what you have to say first.
It was kind of fun to, like, I just pulled, well, the Joy is like the #1 cookbook on our shelf. It's just like in, you know, arm's reach all the time because we use it all the time. But I just, out of like curiosity, went to the grossest pages in the book. I was like, what are the crinkliest, most disgusting pages in here? And there were two that specifically stood out, which are not going to be surprising to either of you. It's the pizza dough recipe, because we always use the pizza dough recipe. Mm-hmm. We like to make pizzas at home because we use pizza as like a way to clear out our crisper drawer. And then the matzo ball soup recipe, which matzo ball soup is like one of my all-time favorite foods. And whenever I'm feeling a little sick, or most of the time if I'm feeling a little sad or depressed, John, my husband, will just look at me and he's like, it's matzo ball soup night. And we just go to your book, and it is absolutely disgusting. It'll fall out at some point. Because I don't think, I mean, he's not the cleanest cook in the kitchen. So there's just like, you know, chicken stock covering that page. But the matzo ball soup recipe is so perfect. It's just very basic. And if anybody is like, I want to try it, I don't know how to make matzo balls, that's like the best. I love it.
I like that as a metric. What is the grossest page?
Yeah, I was excited about this question because I was like, oh, I get to flip through the nastiest pages.
That's probably the approach we should have taken.
Well, we had a kitchen copy for a long time.
Oh yeah, you had to get rid of it, right?
Well, we still have it, but we recently traded it out for a new one because it got to be like almost twice the size because it was so crinkled, and
I saw it and I was like, that is so weird.
Splattered.
Well, we were also just like, we had it on its spine all the time, and so it was kind of slouchy. It was like kind of slouching to the right, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That makes me love books even more when they're all like used like that. I love it. What are yours?
I feel like this is related to the question that we would get a lot on book tour, which was like, what's your favorite recipe? And that was always very exasperating for us to answer. And we usually just like kind of defaulted to whichever recipe we had cooked last. But this is a little different. I feel like ride or die.
I interpreted that in two ways. So I thought about the recipes we hear about the most, one of which is the banana bread, and it's cockaigne.
And it is so good.
It's a really, really solid banana bread recipe. I default to that one if I'm going to make banana bread.
With the dried apricots.
Yeah, I do add the optional dried apricots, which is such a sleeper ingredient.
I would highlight that. Like, always add the dried apricots if you can.
Yeah, we should make it not optional.
Not optional.
But we also hear a lot about the pancake recipe. And it's a pretty, it's basic pancake recipe, but it works every time, and it turns out really beautiful, fluffy pancakes. So I think that is just a winner. But the recipes I use the most, that's how I was kind of thinking about this question, was like the ones that if I'm going to make make this dish, I'm going to use Joy of Cooking. The olive oil cake recipe, I make
so good
all the time. It's so easy and so delicious, and it goes with every fruit. So I make it all year long. The borscht recipe, it's like a borscht that has meat in it, so it has beef. That is a solid recipe that we make throughout the winter every year. The Cincinnati chili cockaigne. If you're a Cincinnati chili fan, that recipe is great.
Please do not leave bad comments on this episode or on our podcast. There are so many Cincinnati chili haters out there. It's ridiculous.
It's just meat sauce. It's just spiced meat sauce.
Well, yeah, Macedonian bolognese.
Yeah,
that's how I try to
exactly.
sell. That's how I try to sell it.
That's what it is. You know, you can put it on spaghetti or you put it on a hot dog. What's not to like?
Or Fritos.
That just feels very American to me, like putting a meat sauce on some plain spaghetti and putting cheese on top. And then my southern cornbread recipe is one that I tinkered with a bunch. I really, really love it. It turns out it's made to use a coarser, well, like part fine and part coarser cornmeal, and it has a hot water soak. And it makes this real crusty on the outside, but almost like a custardy inside cornbread that is very good. The muffin recipe is surprisingly good. I'm not a huge muffin person, but if I'm going to make muffins, I use Joy of Cooking because they always turn out super tall and fluffy. And it's just a great base recipe. So you can do like a blueberry muffin, or you can do raspberry, or you can do like chocolate and orange zest. It's really easy to tweak and just do whatever flavor you want. And then I have a lot of baking stuff in my list because I'm a baker, but the Mimosa Pound Cake is another really good one. It's got a little bit of champagne or sparkling wine in it, and orange juice and zest, and an orange glaze. It's a very good pound cake, and it's based on my grandma's 7-Up pound cake recipe. John, what did you put in your list?
Well, a little bit more on the savory side, but the Asopao de Pollo, really good, solid Puerto Rican chicken rice. I guess you could soup. It's kind of bordering between soup and stew. I just depending on.
It's thicker.
Yeah, it's on the thicker side.
Yeah.
I kind of started interpreting this in terms of like childhood favorites, and my mom would always make the Pfannkuchen, the German pancake, out of the book, and so that's like just kind of a taste memory for me. Dutch baby, for those of you who know it by that name. Country Captain, something that does have like kind of some Charleston connections, I think, or that recipe was added, was actually contributed by, I think that she was writing for the AP at the time, but Cecily Brownstone. But yeah, fantastic recipe. Highly recommend that. There are some that are just recipes that my dad would make for me. I would only spend the summers with him. My parents got divorced when I was really young, and so during the summer, he would always be making. They're called Becker Burgers. I know that. They're not going to like please like the smash burger set. They're not going to please like a lot of hamburger eaters, but they're just like, basically a sauteed hamburger steak that gets lightly steamed with Worcestershire and soy and Tabasco at the end. And for some reason,
that's like your dad's trifecta of seasoning.
No, seriously. I feel like there was even, what did he call it? There's a recipe that was like basically trying to be kind of like a Greek meatball, and that's all that there was in there. It's like that trifecta of flavors.
Yeah, those burgers are good. You can't go into it expecting like a normal hamburger though. Like just treat it. It's its own thing. It's cooked in a skillet, steamed a little bit, so they're juicy and tender. You don't eat it on a bun,
or you
just eat it plain.
The way I would eat it now is probably like you'd maybe like a fried crouton, like put it on top with the pan juices. Drizzled over that so that the bread soaks it up. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably how I would eat it nowadays.
That recipe got skewered by the New York Times. They didn't cook it. It works well, but Kim Severson at the New York Times didn't like it. So.
You're wrong, Kim.
She whispered.
Do you want to know my ride or die?
Oh my gosh, yes, please.
Okay. It's very odd and very obscure, but it's what my mom would make me for my birthday every year. We could ask her to make anything. And mine is, I kid you not, cream chip beef.
You are kidding.
No. I noticed that you have it in both editions of the cookbook that I have. But there's a real big jump from finding chip beef from the Pennsylvania Dutch down in like Delaware, and the Hormel chip beef that my mom used to use. But there's something about it. It's that bechamel on top of salty salt. I guess salty's my thing. Salty beef and just shitty white bread. Oops, sorry. You're not supposed to.
No, I mean,
Just
that's
No
squishy
worries.
white bread. You can jump around. Squishy white bread toast. It's just one of those, I guess, nursery school dishes. But I'm so
love
glad it's here because it's the one recipe I have bookmarked. Literally, like, there it is.
Well, you're going to find out when we ship you the 2019, but I have some slightly sad news.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know, I feel like we went to test that recipe, and I remember we were still living, it's an hour outside of Knoxville, basically. And you know, we were at Kroger, and I was looking for chipped beef, and I found the Hormel product, and it was ridiculously expensive. It was really hard to find, and I was like, you know, this is supposed to be a fairly accessible convenience food, and you just don't see chipped beef very much anymore. I mean, that was the only time I think that I've actually gone looking for it. But
I ate it growing up, and they made it at school. I don't think they were doing that at public school, but I went to a private school for a while, and they occasionally would do chipped beef, and I didn't have, I mean, it wasn't a good version that I had, putting it mildly. Thank you for that question. That was a really fun question. And thank you so much for listening. That was a lovely message to get. It can be hard to know. I know people are listening to the podcast, but it can be hard to get the feedback that people like it. So thank you for that. And this week's Joy Scouts recipe is one that also made my list of ride or die joy recipes. And it's been in the book since 1931.
1936.
Oh, 36.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Irma's first big expansion of the recipe selection in the book. She added this one. It's apple dumplings.
And that's on page 688. It's pretty classic. The recipe calls for, I believe it's 4 small apples, or you can use larger ones, but you cut them in half, and you core the apples and stuff them with a brown sugar and cinnamon and butter mixture, and then you wrap them in pastry dough. So you could make your own, or you could just use store-bought pie dough. And then you put them in a baking dish, and you make this syrup that's brown sugar, cinnamon, and you take a lemon and you cut it into slices.
Very thin slices.
Very thin. And then you bring that to a boil, pour it over the dumplings, and then put them in the oven. And they kind of bake in that syrup, and the syrup gets reduced and it gets really sticky. And when you take them out, it just is, I mean, I'm not even a big apple person, but they are fantastic.
Yeah, when we first tested it, we were like, oh, well, this is something we have to test. And then we ended up polishing our plates.
Yeah, I fell in love with that recipe. It's really homey, and it feels very old-fashioned, but in the best possible way. Again, that's on page 688. Definitely getting into apple season, so feel free to let us know if you make that recipe. Please tag us at The Joy of Cooking on Instagram. We would love to see what you make.
The drizzle cream is good. Vanilla ice cream might be better. I'll let you decide.
If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We'd love to hear from you. Next week's topic comes from our caller.
This one actually comes from our audio engineer, Haley. She says, are there any snack foods you can eat frozen besides things like grapes or fruit?
Thanks for that question, Haley. It's really nice to hear from you.
Hi, Haley.
Hi. All right. What's everyone cooking this week?
Chipped beef. I'm gonna go find it.
I want this Becker Burger situation now. I'm just interested.
You should try it.
They're good. They're good.
Apple dumplings.
I guess we're all cooking apple dumplings.
Now we've got apples, so
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
I don't have any cooking plans, but we are going for dim sum on Sunday, and I'm very excited. I can't wait to get my favorites. I cannot get enough of the little shrimp, the hargao, the kind of translucent shrimp dumplings. Those are just so good, and they're so pretty.
Yes.
They're so nice to look at. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm still focused on green chilies. For those of you who didn't hear me lament, well, this is the small. Yeah, no, it's the smallest violin in the world or whatever. But we overbought a bunch of roasted green chilies last season, and so I need to use them before I am allowed to buy more. So, a green chili sauce, probably the New Mexico style stacked enchiladas. I was thinking.
Oh, nice.
Because those are really, easy on the prep and delicious, and kind of good for like one stack is a good serving. It's kind of nice and neat.
I can't wait for you to make that for me. All right, Shane, before we wrap, where can listeners follow you?
The best place probably is Instagram. I'm an intermittent poster. Don't expect to see food pictures, but it's Shane Farfield, which references my book that was published by 10 Speed. But I'm still pretty far afield given that I'm up here in the North Country, and also in the pages of Savour, which I'm thrilled to say is still rocking and rolling thanks to Kat Craddock, the new editor-in-chief and CEO. And it's glossier than ever. I don't know if you've seen it, but here's the latest cover. It's really beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
I'm so glad it's being printed again.
Me too.
It's so pretty.
Print is not dead.
And we'll put links to all of those things in our show notes. Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review. Follow us at joyofcooking.substack.com and on Instagram at thejoyofcooking. Stay tuned for next week where we will talk about frozen snacks, and don't forget to make this week's recipe apple dumplings on page 688. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation production house. Thank you to Dave Drusky, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer.
If you love the stories we bring you each week, please consider supporting us on Patreon. As an independent media company, your support is absolutely essential. It allows us to continue creating high-quality professional episodes that amplify the voices of women, small business owners, writers, artists, and creatives, and keep their stories free from commercial pressure. By becoming a Patreon member, you're not just supporting us, you're investing in the future of independent media. Please visit patreon.com/The Joy of Creation Production House to join our community today. Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast dreams.